All right, so welcome to the Perspectives in STEM Speaker Series presented by Teach STEM Global. I am Dr. Kimberly West, the founder and president of the organization. I am delighted that you have joined us this evening as we celebrate Women's History Month with the theme Empowering Women in STEM, Breaking Barriers and Building Futures. To begin our program, our dynamic and highly recognized speaker, Dr. Berry, will present on the topic, followed by a question and answer session with questions from myself and you all, the audience. And at the end of this program, I hope you walk away from tonight's program inspired and encouraged to do more to further STEM education and the opportunity it provides. Thinking long term about students and their career opportunities and what they want to study in school. So I'm excited to hear from Dr. Berry. So let's go ahead and get started by introducing our speaker. And Dr. Berry, if I mispronounce anything, please let me know. I apologize to my head and not my heart.
Yeah.
Today's speaker is Dr. Carlotta A. Berry. Dr. Berry is an educator, speaker, author, and a researcher. She is also a professor in the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering at the Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology and the Dr. Lawrence J. Giolito Endowed Chair for Electrical and Computer Engineering. Dr. Berry is the first Black woman to earn tenure, full professor, and endowed chairmanship at Rose-Hulman. That is an accomplishment. She has a passion for diversifying the engineering profession by encouraging more women, marginalized, and minoritized populations to pursue STEM degrees. Dr. Berry has also founded her business, Noir STEMinist, Educational Consulting, in 2022. Through her organization, she does speaking engagements, workshops, consulting, performs hip-hop slam poetry, gives engineering professor advice, and engineering professor quizzes on social media. She also sells robots, children's books, romance novels, and other merchandise to promote diversity in STEM as part of her mission to make STEM and robotics for the streets. I'm here for that. Dr. Berry has garnered multiple accolades and awards, including being named Forbes 50 over 50 in innovation. So I don't know about you. I don't know if you're excited, but I'm excited. And I'm excited to hear everything that Dr. Berry has to offer us this evening. And so without any further ado, I will turn the reins over to her and we will get started. So ladies, we are in for a treat. I'm excited. So here we go. All right, Dr. Berry, I turn it over to you.
Thank you so much for having me. So, the first thing is I would absolutely like to thank Dr. West and Teach STEM Global for having me. I am going to share my slides and request that Dr. West let me know whether you can actually see them.
Yes, ma'am, we can see them.
So, as Dr. West said, I am an engineer, I am a professor, I'm an author, I'm a researcher, and all of those things represent who I am as an intersectional Black woman. And so I always tell people you cannot separate any parts of my identity from any part of the other because they all inform and dictate how I move in this world. And that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit today. Empowering women in STEM, breaking barriers, and building futures for Women's History Month. So, in my role as a professor and an engineer, just by showing up in the world, I am doing my part to diversify STEM or STEAM. I also talk a lot about that arts needs to be an integral part of STEM because the arts dictates the ethics, the humanities, the ability to communicate and share your ideas in verbal and written form. But it also represents who I am in my work in trying to increase the diversity that we see in engineering. So what you'll see here at this bottom middle picture is me and a few of my colleagues who are all Black women engineering professors. And although there have been lots of interventions about getting more women and girls and Black and brown people into STEM, unfortunately, the numbers have remained relatively flat, where women is typically in the STEM workforce 20 to 30%. And when you look at Black women, that number drops below 10%. So then if you look at Black women who go on to get advanced degrees in engineering, such as a master's and PhD, When you get to the PhD level in academia, there are typically only about 200 Black women who are engineering professors in tenure track jobs in the United States. So, because of that, there's typically less than 2 to 3 degrees of freedom between us. So, that automatically means that you are no longer just a professor, but being a professor means you are now a STEM advocate for diversity, for diversifying STEM. So, the way that I define who I am as an academic and as an engineer is based upon a text written by Ernest Boyer called Scholarship Reconsidered, which looks at intersectionality from the perspective of a researcher. And I build upon this and look at it as intersectionality beyond academia. But in terms of academia, as a researcher, you look at the scholarship of discovery, integration, application, and teaching, which are the four roles that professors and academics will typically have. But Boyer proposes that you look at these from an inclusive view of scholarship where they dynamically interact to make an interdependent whole. So it's like a puzzle or a spaghetti. You can never separate one from the other. So knowledge is acquired by me and my students through research, synthesis, practice, and teaching. So investigative research, which I do robotics for that, is the scholarship of discovery. The scholarship of integration is how do I look at robotics from the lens of multiple disciplines? So that means looking at it from a perspective of a mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, computer science, software engineering, human robot interaction, psychologists, sociologists, people in informatics also do robotics. So, how does what I do intersect with those other disciplines? And how do we apply it to consequential problems or service? I do this through educational, open source, low cost robotics because robotics are great for teaching STEM, but you have to get over the barrier of high cost robotics or not having the knowledge in order to be able to do STEM in this context. So then I do that also through my teaching because I use teaching to educate and entice future scholars and to transmit and transform and extend this knowledge beyond what I do in the classroom or beyond what I do in just my research lab. So once again, multidisciplinary robotics is key because it's a way to show the intersections between disciplines such as sociology, psychology, computer science, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, etc., which means it gives benefits to all of those disciplines. And this is despite the fact that people may have divergent interests with respect to STEM or even STEAM. That also could be a focus as you're a part of robotics. And people may have different skill sets or prerequisites, different programming abilities, and have different experiences they're interested in. Maybe they're interested in building a robot, programming a robot, looking at controls, etc. But despite those different interests, what I look at is there a way to provide them with a platform that is appropriate for their interests and their needs and meets them where their abilities are. So once again, this is how we look at those intersections where they all meet together for that robot. And it's great for STEAM because you can look at it from the perspective or the lens that you're most comfortable with or most interested in, no matter what your programming ability is, your electronics ability, your humanities experience, etc. So the question you may be asking, because I've done all of this about multidisciplinary robots, what is a robot? So in the most basic sense, what I tell students and kids when I'm teaching robotics is a robot is simply a machine. Think washing machine. Think any kind of machine. The key difference is a robot is a machine that is given some level of intelligence through software, which may be artificial intelligence, which may be code that you wrote that is either based upon sensing, planning, and acting, and the robot may be autonomous or have some level of autonomy, where autonomous means the robot can do something without human intervention. The most primary example most people have seen is the Roomba vacuum cleaner. You would say that as long as the Roomba is vacuuming your carpet, it's fully autonomous. It can do that on its own. But if your cat starts riding the vacuum cleaner, or if the vacuum cleaner gets stuck on a chair leg, or it gets stuck on your stairs, maybe about to fall, it's not fully autonomous anymore because now you may have to step in and give the perception to get the cat off of the vacuum cleaner robot, or to get the robot away from the stairs, or to get it out of a corner or off of a chair where it has gotten stuck. So Most robots, based upon some software and task or goal, are uniquely autonomous for a specific task or goal, which typically the user is going to write for it. So the robot, as I said, is made of the brain. And so we talked about having different skill sets. So depending upon what your skill set is, the robot's brain could be your laptop computer. It could be an Arduino microcontroller. It could be a microbit, a Circuit Playground Express, a Raspberry Pi, or many, many other things. You typically will design the robot's body in order to meet the task. So it may be a small little disc if it's a vacuuming robot. I do wheeled mobile robots. So my robots are 3D printed. Then I have sensors on my robot. The sensors are how the robot sees the world, and I dictate those by what I want the robot to do. So if I want the robot to see walls, I may have infrared or sonar sensors on it. If I want the robot to detect heat, I may have a temperature sensor on it. If I wanted to detect light, I would have a photoresistor or some kind of light sensor on it. And then the effectors and actuators are how the robot impacts the world. If it's a drone, then the effectors may be propellers and the actuators may be motors. You could also have wheels. So for my wheeled robots, the wheels are the effector. Once again, I may use motors. You could have pneumatics. You would have different types of actuators by what you want your robot to do. You could also have an industrial manipulator, which is a robot arm, which is what you would typically see in a manufacturing facility. So I haven't shared a lot about my journey, but before becoming an engineering professor, I actually worked in manufacturing as a controls and robotics engineer for Ford Motor Company as well as Detroit Edison. So when I did that, it was a different kind of robot with a different shape because it had a different need, such as picking up windshields to place in cars. So, artificial intelligence, simply put, is a way of creating software that mimics some human like behavior or some action that, in this case, you want the robot to do. So, it's sensing, planning, and acting. There are other characteristics of artificial intelligence, such as searching, making representation of the world like a map, some way of showing the robot's knowledge, etc. But on a more basic level, you want your robot to see the world with a sensor, think about what it saw with its software, and then act on the world. When I teach this to my students, we always start with the most basic kind of artificial intelligence, which is obstacle avoidance. At the most basic level, you want your robot to move around the world while making sure any humans that come in contact with the robot are safe. So it uses a sensor, sonar or infrared, to detect where objects are. It makes a plan to turn or stop or move away from that, and then it executes those actions with the wheels of the robot in order to get away. You could also do this with wall following or picking something up or searching the world to pick up an object or mapping the world or localizing, which is determining where the robot is in the world. All of these are different ways of implementing artificial intelligence to make your robot more intelligent based upon the diversity of the sensors and the complexity of the software. So, as I said, robotics is great for all learners. So, this is what I use to build connections and break barriers in my world. So, I use the same robots whether I am teaching K through 12 teachers, adults, elementary kids, middle school kids, or high school kids. What differentiates my robot is what I put on it. As the learner grows, I may put more complex controllers or brains that require more complex programming, or I may add more sensors that require a higher level of thinking. So, on that upper left, you see some of my college students testing out remote driving with a PlayStation controller. So, they were preparing to do a competition with high school kids, shown on the bottom right, where they were going to use the robot to navigate an obstacle course. Those robots on the upper right were from a summer camp where the kids built and programmed the robots and then shucked them. The great thing about them being 3D printed, they are low cost. And if a part breaks, you typically can reprint it unless it's electronic. This video in the middle is actually, I do a lot of my robot and engineering education on social media. A teacher on social media found some of my TikTok videos and used them to 3D print and make robots for her students.
This is how you build and program your robot. First, we assembled the robot by watching a YouTube tutorial. Then we wired the robot. Then we created a code for the robot to perform. The most challenging part was wiring the robot. The most interesting part was coding the robot and watching it perform. This is how you...
So all of that is what noir stimulus means. It's a word that I made up, but people are often like, I don't know what it means. It means whatever my intersectional identities want it to mean. But in particular, it means that I bring robotics and STEM to people, and I bring people to robotics and STEM in lots of different ways to educate and diversify the profession, because engineers use math and science to design the solutions to problems and to improve processes. And because we live in a global and diverse world, you want to have diverse, multidisciplinary teams because they come up with the best solutions to problems. So if the world is going to have the best solutions, then we need STEM to reflect the world that we live in. So by doing this, I take robotics out of the classroom by doing talks such as the one I'm doing today, by doing speaking engagements at libraries, at museums, at elementary schools, by being a first robotics judge and judge advisor, and teaching kids of all ages as well as adults what is a robot, how to build robots, how to program robots, and how to engage with them in order to improve their STEM knowledge, regardless of whether their interests are. Everyone may not be a math or science person, but I always say everyone can learn some STEM and learn to apply some STEM, just like I think everyone who's an engineer or scientist needs to know some humanities, because it makes you more a well-rounded person. And if nothing else, it helps you with critical thinking and problem-solving skills. So my goal to diversify STEM goes beyond just what I do through my organization. I also do this through two organizations that I help co-found, which are nonprofits, Black in Robotics and Black in Engineering. Through them, we do grants, scholarships, we mentor graduate students, professors, etc. And we do a lot of these things in order to help diversify the profession as well. So one of my most recent accomplishments, which is how I actually connected with Teach STEM Global, is as an IEEE educational initiative and distinguished lecturer, I have now started to share my robots with organizations around the world in order to democratize STEM by giving more people access to the robots, doing workshops with them, and giving them the technology to 3D printed robots in order to learn more about artificial intelligence, robotics, etc. And as I shared, the things I like most about some of these videos is, like, for example, this one on the right, they didn't have a battery pack and they are somehow powering my robot with a cell phone. I have no idea how that works, but they're now doing even more than what I would have thought to do, because we know that necessity is the mother of invention. So I love seeing my robots around the world in places that I have never been, and seeing the way that people actually are using them and implementing them in order to educate their communities about how STEM can be used in order to diversify the profession. She can put the elephant on if she wants. Okay, go ahead. So here are a few more examples of how I do demos. How cool is that? Good job, girls. Good job. And on social media in order to normalize people seeing robots doing things. And I do them with cardboard boxes. So it's not all about 3D printing. Sometimes it's about what do you have in your house. So I've shown how to make robots out of boxes, out of cardboard. Then I also have 3D printed robots of several different shapes and sizes. I show examples of how you can do basic robotics with a light sensor. And by doing this with kids, they see the cause and effect of how a robot can be sped up or slowed down with a flashlight. Similarly over here, you better get it, Ivy. How a flashlight can be used to make a robot stop moving. Really, Ivy? You gonna do me like that? Because I do these for social media. I try to be silly and engaging so that people can't stop thinking I'm not a STEM person because I don't look like an engineer, or I don't act like an engineer, or I'm not good at calculus or chemistry or physics or any of those things. But that it can be fun. But it can be fun no matter your age, as long as you can show how it can be engaging.
Live robot party. Uh-oh. He don't want to be like that.
And finally, I talk a lot about STEAM and the arts. The other way, that had some kind of auto on it. The other way that I bring people to STEM is through my writing. And I write STEM, engineering, and robots children's books so that kids can see themselves being engineers and scientists, and they see their faces on these books. And I did this because there was a need, and it's very rare to see STEM books where you see Black and brown kids actually programming robots, building robots, programming robots, using them, solving problems with them, or using them to solve a problem, etc. And here are examples of me using those books in order to get young people and not so young people excited about STEM. And the last thing I wanted to share is I also do AI art. I know AI art is a third rail, and it can be a very difficult topic to broach for some people, but it is also a great way to show young people that representation matters and have them show themselves as robotics engineers, chemists, physicists, entomologists, geologists, astrologers, etc. So I do that as well. It's a great way to say, hey, there is somebody who you can look at so that when they ask kids what an engineer looks like, they are no longer drawing the predominantly white male with glasses, etc. And so I do this for older people as well, older young people with romance novels. And this is another way of sneaking in some STEM by showing them books where you have women in STEM who are living their everyday lives, experiencing success and challenges in their career as well as their personal and professional lives. So, with that, I want to say thank you. And once again, Dr. West, I really appreciate you for inviting me to speak. You could take a picture of this slide if you were like. If you want to contact me later or follow me on any of my social media. And that top right is an example of a GIF that I made. I make those also for social media because another thing that's very difficult to find is Black and brown people, in particular women, doing STEM in GIFs. So I have professor GIFs, engineer GIFs, etc. So I'm going to stop sharing now so that you all can ask me some questions, or Dr. West can ask me some questions. And thank you again.
Thank you. I don't know about you, but I think my mind was it definitely exposed to some new things. I love the books. I'm very big on reading, getting students to read, getting them to um getting them to read. That's my thing.
Yes.
I tell them all the time, I say when you get a doctorate degree, the first thing they tell you if you want to complete that dissertation is to read. So I want you to
Lots of
read.
reading.
That's acquire, how to acquire language, how you acquire even just understanding how grammar works. So so I have a few questions for you. Then I'll also open the floor up to our guests to ask you some questions too. They may have some things. So let me do this before I go and ask you a question. Is there anyone who would like to ask Dr. Berry a question? I don't want to steal. I can be selfish, but I want to give you the opportunity. Really quickly, I just want to open the floor. And if not, I have questions prepared. I saw I'm ready. And you can put it in the chat if you like also. All right, so it seems like we have some quiet folks here, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. And so let me go ahead and ask you just a few questions, Dr. Bear. I'm sure you all want to know more about who she is, this phenomenal woman who, I mean, when I tell you the universe just puts people together sometimes and things just happen, that is definitely what has happened. And I'm very grateful for that. So, my first question for you, Dr. Berry, is can you share your story, your path about, your path to becoming an engineer and your experience as a woman in STEM.
Absolutely. So I'm often asked that question, and I keep saying someday I'm going to write my autobiography. I haven't got around to it yet. I still have children's books and some more romance novels to write first, but Um, I say I'm gonna title it From Barbies to Bots because my journey did not start in STEM. It started nowhere near STEM. When I was little, dolls. I love dolls. My mom loved dolls, so all she did was give me dolls. And so parents will often ask me how to get my kid in STEM, how to get them in engineering, science, math. I said, do not go buy them all this expensive stuff, kits and all that, encourage their curiosity, encourage their innovation, encourage their creativity. You can do that with things you find around your house. You could take a pen apart and ask them, can you put this pen back together for me? Something breaks around the house. Ask them, what do they think? How do you think we can fix this? Mine was my Barbies. I had dolls. I wanted them to have cute outfits. My mother couldn't afford to buy me all those things. She was a kindergarten teacher. So I would go around the house, grab me scraps, trying to sew clothes together or stringing things together, trying to make the dream house look cuter, trying to make her little car run faster. So do things to help these kids to be creative. A big one with me when I was little was Lego, blocks, building things, being creative, being letting my imagination run wild. One thing I wanted to be a teacher when I was little like my mom, so I would make up assignments, make up homework, let the dolls do the homework, and then I would grade it. I would sit and, doodle things. The one thing I had started doing, I don't know if you guys know what this is, but I was doing factorials on words and permutations before I knew what that meant. If I was in middle school and I was bored in class, I would start doing that. I even got in trouble one time in English class for doodling and not paying attention. Doodling is actually a great skill for being creative. It's not just sometimes you're daydreaming, sometimes you are when folks is boring, but it's also a great way to use your creative mind. And so when I was in middle school, I had a principal tell my mom she's very, very good at math and science. And I actually think that her capabilities are being wasted at the school. And I think you should move her to a different school. And that's how I ended up at a magnet school. So I was moved out of my public school to a magnet school. And while at that magnet school, I was recruited to be in a program called Inroads. And Inroads was a program for diverse students who were looking for opportunities to do internships and get experience in some technical field. And that was when I first heard in high school that you should really consider being an engineer, maybe instead of a math teacher. Wasn't really sure what an engineer was. So I kind of was thinking train conductor because that's the only engineer I'd ever heard of. So I had to go to the library and look it up. God, the library. Yeah, this is before cell phones and internet were hot. I'm old. And because of that, I said, well, it looks kind of interesting. I will consider being an engineer, but I was still a little afraid I wasn't going to like it. So I ended up going to Spelman College and Georgia Tech so that I could get a math and engineering degree in 5 years so that I could fall back on the math degree if the engineering did not work. I, at the time, was pretty broke because 5 years to get 2 degrees means I ran out of financial aid. So I worked a lot of jobs. I worked as a hostess at a restaurant. I was a tutor. I worked in the dining hall. And so by the time I graduated from Georgia Tech, my grades were pretty bad. I liked engineering and I enjoyed it, but I did not like the experience and the way I was being taught. I did not like being in class where I was one of only two or three Black people, one of only two or three women. Very rarely had any professors who were not white males or even Americans. And so because of that, they did not make those personal connections with me. And so I would say, God, engineering looks like it could be really interesting, but they make it look so unfun. So I had decided that I was going to become an engineering professor. Unfortunately, with that GPA, I wasn't getting nobody's grad school. So I graduated from Georgia Tech and I went to go work at Ford Motor Company in Detroit Edison and also to pay off my debt. I had a lot of student loan debt. And I found myself constantly volunteering to tutor kids through the National Society of Black Engineers and also mentoring the interns at the plant. And I was like, God, I need to go on and get this degree because no matter what I'm doing, I'm teaching anyway. And so I ended up, I said, it's gonna take a miracle though, because I had a 2.5. I remember I had 2.5 graduating. And I had a organization that I was doing some work for, and I was at Wayne State University, and there was a professor who had gotten a grant to pay for a grad student to do research with him, and it had to go to a Black person, and he couldn't find anybody. And so he basically gave me that grant to become his grad student. Didn't even really consider my GPA from undergrad. And I knew that if I was going to get my PhD, I was going to have something change. So I got a 4.0 in grad school because I knew when I applied for my PhD, I could not have them looking back at my undergraduate grades. And so after working and graduating from Wayne State, I ended up going to Vanderbilt University to get my PhD. And I had been doing controls and robotics since I was working as an engineer at Ford. So my PhD is in human robot interaction using mobile robotics. I know that was a long answer to your question, but that's how I ended up there. But I started off STEM. It was still STEAM. I was doing teaching. I was being creative. I was sewing. I was doing things for my dolls, and that transitioned into the math and science. Music is also another entree point that is great for math and science. My daughter and I took piano lessons, and the piano teacher will tell you getting children playing music and learning about that is a great way to help them with their math skills.
No, you've given me no, the answer was beautiful because you made me think about some things. First of all, my dolls, I always tell the story. I was lucky I didn't get electrocuted because I was trying to curl mine, when I didn't realize it was plastic. Then I put it under the sink and the curl now was still plugged in. Right, right. Again, I didn't that was bad stem for me. So
Yeah.
thankful, lucky to still be here. So, so while you were learning all those great things, I don't know what I was thinking. But again, you give me some things to think about, even with the doodling. I was looking at a video the other day and they were talking, I was listening to a lady and she was talking about how that led her to architecture. And just as an
Yes.
educator, the things that when you walk around the room, you go, put that away. But at the same time, though, it's like you said, there's something to that could lead to something more.
Well, now I will
That,
say, if they need to be paying attention, they need to be paying attention.
yeah,
I'm not gonna take that away from them, but some
yeah,
of
yeah,
that doodling is creative. I will tell you one thing I do. I have some students who have documented disabilities who will doodle on the exam instead of answering the question in the middle. Now, at that point, I will go,
yeah.
baby, I need you to stop making pretty pictures and answer those questions because I can't grade your pretty picture. So there is a balance between those two. But I do think doodling has its place as well.
Yes. Yeah, I
So
agree.
much
No, I
Dr.
agree. No, I
Robert Pinkett.
Yes, this is Dr. Robin Pinkett. She says, "Please write the autobiography." I adore Dr. Pimpin, Dr. Robert Pimpin. So she's saying, "Please write that autobiography, because we need it." It says, "Thanks for making a difference in our global society."
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just yes, this is what we're here for. So, you talked a little bit about this already, but just what inspired you to work with K-12 teachers, and students? I know you talked
Well,
about your mom, and I love
absolutely.
that. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So, I'm a different kind of professor. So remember the whole reason I wanted to become an engineering professor is because I felt like my professors at Georgia Tech were running people away from the discipline instead of bringing them to it because they were so unapproachable, so unfriendly, so dry, so boring. Some of them looked at their shoes and couldn't even look you in the face because they had no kind of people skills. So I wanted to show a different kind of engineering by being a different kind of professor. But you're exactly right. A lot of what I did in high school was I worked at the Red Cross, I worked at my mother's daycare center, and so because of that, I learned how to break down complicated information in a way so that people can understand it. Some people are so smart, they ain't no worldly good because nobody knows what they're talking about. So I was able to do that. And so by doing that, I talk a lot about, I did research on it that most girls are lost from STEM by the time they hit fourth or fifth grade. So, high school programs, great. College programs, great. You lost a lot of them already. So, if you really want to get them and keep them, you have to do things at the K through 4 level. And it's not totally their fault. It's not always welcoming. There's a lot of bias. I hate to say it, as they get older, there's also imposter syndrome, although some people say it's not a syndrome. It's not something we're doing wrong. It is external factors that don't make it welcoming for us. And people presuming you're incompetent or presuming you're there because of affirmative action or that DEI is some ugly bad word that means you were not qualified and you ran faster and jumped higher than most just to get there. But because of that, we have to start at the ground floor. That's why I started with elementary school books, my K through 3 books. But I do have some ideas for some middle school books and some junior high books as well. I have asked my 17, well, she's 16, she's going to be 17 next week, my 16-year-old daughter to help with that. Because once she hit fifth grade, there was no more reading chapter books as much as I would have loved her to. She reads graphic novels. So, comic books. So, can we make some comic books about some STEM superheroes? I loved Wonder Woman when I was 5th and 6th grade. Can we make a STEM Wonder Woman comic book or something like that? But I started with that level because I think we have to get them there. We have to build up their confidence and we have to maintain and keep them. But what I found was the teachers don't know the stuff we need the kids to know. And also, sometimes it's teachers who turn the kids off. So if you have a teacher who's teaching math and they're up there talking about, I hate this subject, I don't like this, I don't even really understand it myself, well, then how are you going to inspire kids to want to do it? I went to my daughter's school one time when she was in elementary school, and the teacher would turn on these videos to teach the math concept. And then after the video went off, she was giving them worksheets. Ugh. Right? That's not going to excite any kid about math. So that's why I started there. And I start with the teachers, especially here in Indiana. The Indiana Department of Education actually gave us grants because they now have a new standard that there needs to be CS in every classroom, some level of computer science or programming ability or algorithms at some level. So I do a lot of teaching to the K through 12 teachers using robots to teach programming because programming in and of itself is great, but on an artifact where you now program and see something light up or move or play music is more exciting for the teachers and the kids. And I also have done the pictures that I showed, the robotics competitions with my daughter and her Girl Scouts before they got to high school. That was another way to get them. Unfortunately, my daughter's been over STEM. She has now moved on to other things. But all her little girlfriends from Girl Scouts are actually still on the robotics team in high school. And we started doing this with them when they were in the 3rd grade. And by doing it on an all girls team, you take out that male or dynamic where sometimes boys are a little obnoxious, a little bossy. They have that takeover spirit, or they're saying things about girls aren't good at math or science. By doing it first in their Girl Scouts troop, they got their confidence completely. And now they're on a high school team where there's only 3 or 4 girls. But they now know they can do it because they did 5 years of Girl Scouts robotics. So that's another reason why I started at those lower levels to build their confidence. And now they can walk in those rooms and know they're as good as everyone else.
I'm getting all excited. I'm hearing you, and I heard what you said about educators and teachers, and and I understand as an educator, sometimes there's that pushback of we don't have enough time or we don't have enough resources. And then I also hear you saying too, and that's true. I've seen it myself where teachers will suck the joy out of it. So, what advice would you give to teachers? What would you want them to know about the benefits of STEM and what it can do for their students?
I think that there are resources to help them to be successful. And a lot of times, what I hear also is they're teaching to the test. I got a test, I got a test, I got a curriculum, I got standards, I got to meet all this. So you tell me what you need to teach and let me create something in the context of your lesson plan. Because they're going to tell you no if what I'm asking you to do is going to take you away from what you have to do. So when I do these K through 12 teacher workshops, I will go and read over the standards for whatever they're currently doing, and I will create something in the context of what they have to teach anyway. For example, if they're teaching math, if they're teaching area of a circle, let me show you how to program a robot to drive in a circle. Have the kids measure the diameter of how the robot moved and figure out the area traced out by the robot. Okay. Don't have me teach you something that's going to take you away from your lesson plan and also not teach you something that's so difficult that you can't do what you need to be doing. So that's why I have these robots that grow with the teachers where the very lower levels are scratch or make code. It looks like puzzle pieces. It's graphical. They don't have to learn Python or C or Java or anything like that. It literally looks like puzzle pieces and the kids can do it too, where you just read the words, you click them together and the robot's going to move.
Right. No, I'm just excited. And I'm just also wondering if again some of you in the audience, I got maybe one or two more quick questions for Dr. Berry, real quick, and then if you want to ask her. I'm also focused. We talked about your motivation with teachers. What would you tell parents? What would you tell parents who are with their child, may not really know STEM, feel comfortable with STEM, what would you tell them? Because at the end of the day, we want more students to go into STEM. pursue careers in STEM. Um, what would you say to parents who want to expose their child or may not know a lot, but want their child to be in something STEM related?
I have a couple of pieces of advice. Number one, don't feed into stereotypes. You would not believe the number of times I have been somewhere doing STEM programming or something, and kids are walking up playing with the robots and all this. And I've had a parent walk up and a little girl was playing with the robot. She goes, "Oh, this is really cool. Let me go get her brother. He would love this," and comes right back. And I'm like, okay, this little girl has been here with me for 5 minutes and was eating it up, and you leaving to go get her brother. I'm not saying don't go get her brother, but encourage her too, right? So that's number one. Number two, don't just take your kids to STEM events, stay with them, right? So when they get home, you can do it with them, right? You learn something too. Just I mentioned I do a lot of stuff on social media. So I have a lot of parents who reach out to me and say, "Can you teach my kid this, or can you do this workshop for them, or can you do that?" I had one last night with a young lady whose science project broke, and so her and her mom logged on, and I was trying to help them get it fixed because she's going to the national competition next week or whatever. And her mom was like, "I didn't even know she could do this, and I don't know nothing about it. I'm so glad I found you on TikTok because I couldn't help her." That's awesome. But next time baby girl is sitting somewhere in the corner doing something you don't know what she's doing, walk over there and be like, "What you doing?" and show a little bit to me. So yes, I was happy to help them, but go sit beside them. I've done workshops on Zoom, and you just go sit next to them. So when they're doing it, you're like, let me get a little bit out of this too. You know, so that's the second thing I would say. And like I said, find things to put them in to foster that. So as they get older, first robotics, first Lego League, Vex Robotics, Bot Ball. Go to websites that are free. VR.vex.com is free. Tinkercad.com is free. Scratch.mit.edu is free. Look at programs through code.org, Black Girls Code, Brown Girls Code, Black Boys Code. These programs are there. There's a Girls Who Code. I know I was missing one. So some of these cost, some of them do not. But also just have them go online. I do YouTube videos. YouTube is free. If they're sitting on YouTube anyway, watching cartoons and people sing or play music or dancing or whatever, turn on a video and let them watch a little bit of programming too. So all of these things can be done, but you most importantly just want to continue to foster that creativity so that once they have it, they don't give it back. Last thing I want to say though, everybody is not a STEM person. But I said everybody can know some STEM, but feed into their affinity. And the reason I say that is as a college professor, I've had students who enter engineering school because their parents told them, "I'm only paying for medical school or engineering school." If the kid is interested in that, God bless them. But then what happens is I'm over here teaching a square peg sitting over here in a round hole. So there's somebody who's sitting here who hates this stuff and is here because mom and dad made them go. And they're miserable. I've taught a young lady who was a supreme musician, but parents weren't going to pay for a music degree or an art degree. And she graduated as an engineer, never worked as an engineer, and had a miserable 4 years of her journey. So that's another thing. Everyone's not a STEM person. So make sure you're feeding into your child the interest and the affinity that they have, right? My daughter has recently decided she either wants to be in communications or art or public speaking or marketing. That is great, but she's been doing STEM since she was 3. So you're not going to give that back because you now want to go into this. So you bring those intersections of who you are together.
Yeah. I feel terrible for that student. Oh gosh, he
Yeah.
spent 4 years. One last question. Thinking about students, what would you tell students? What would you tell students who are, and I guess too, because I even thinking about my own journey. There's so much out there, but you don't know what you don't know, and or until you are exposed to it. And sometimes, even as an adult, I go, "Ooh, I wish somebody would have told me because I could have." So, what
Hmm.
would students who are curious,
That's good.
yeah, what would you say to them?
Identify the resources to be successful. I talked a lot about my horrible, horrible grades at Georgia Tech. A big part of my grades being bad at Georgia Tech, one, the professors just were not very approachable. If you did go to office hours, they made you feel like gum on the bottom of their shoe. But the way that my grades finally improved at Georgia Tech is I stepped out of my comfort zone and I actually started talking to classmates. I started going to tutoring. I started going to students and get help. Even to this day, we still have students who are afraid to go to professors' office hours, afraid to admit they don't understand something, afraid to ask for help. You sit in the front row, you raise your hand, you talk to the professor before and after class, and get them to know you personally. That makes a big difference because if I know who you are and I can tell you're struggling, I'm going to talk to you. But if you're in the back row on your phone or on your computer and you ain't never said 3 words to me, I don't even know you need help or you're struggling or what's going on with you. I also, similar to you, did not know when I decided to take this journey to STEM what I was in for. I didn't realize about all the bias that Black people and Black women face in STEM. But once I was into the journey, I was in so deep. I had student loans. I wasn't going to leave. I was too stubborn to quit, but it could have been a whole lot easier if I'd had those resources to be successful. If I had joined the Society of Women Engineers from day one, if I had joined the National Society of Black Engineers, if I had gone to any of those resources on campus that were in place for me to be successful that I didn't know existed. A lot of times I was at work, couldn't go if I wanted to. So what I tell students is open your mouth. Closed mouth don't get fed. Tell people what you need and let them help you. Give you advice. That's why I had that engineering professor advice series. That's why I started it. Because some of my students would never come to me for help, but hopefully they see one of my YouTube or TikTok videos. They'll be like, that's me. Go to office hours. Take notes. Read over the note. Read your doggone textbook. Those little things that people don't tell you are so important. Do your homework. You know, as we're older now, some of the stuff that's like, well, duh. But they don't do that. And they don't realize that that's important. Go to class. Lord have mercy. Go to class. Stuff like that. It's just important. Those little resources, those tiny steps that are knocking some of those things out. I failed an exam. You shove it in your backpack and go through your day? Or do you go look at the questions you missed and then go ask somebody, can you explain these things that I missed? Because they probably going to be on the final later. So
Yeah.
having, those little pieces of advice to help you to be successful.
Yeah. And again, I just you're speaking my language and you're speaking to my heart. We do have one question from the chats. So what are some of the ways to inspire students to pursue STEM careers, especially if they may not see themselves represented in the area?
Help them to see themselves and be honest and transparent with them that until these numbers change or until we get a critical mass, it may not be an easy journey for you, but you are absolutely valued and needed. Your unique experience that you can bring to that field is absolutely vital to improving that space, regardless of how people, react to you. But typically, what I do with students, instead of just saying, we need you in STEM, is tell me what you like. Tell me what you like to do. A big one right now is video games. And so I'll talk to them about how could you be a creator instead of a consumer of technology? I know you like to play Mario Kart or Super Mario Bros. Or I'm thinking of the ones my daughter plays, but whatever. How could you design your own video game? Roblox and Mind, I can't even think of it
Minecraft?
now. Minecraft, yeah. So those are also like video games, but from what I understand, I don't play them, but there is some creativity to them. So get them doing things where they actually build things up or, you know what I mean? So that they're using their creative mind, they're learning to troubleshoot, they're learning to problem solve. So it's not just mindless behavior. What do you like to do? Do you like to build with Lego or Tinker Toys or whatever? What about civil engineering? What about making a popsicle stick bridge, right? So take what they like to do and transition that to relate it to something in STEM.
Mm, yeah. And that's the thing. I think people think STEM is so highly specialized,
Yeah.
technical, all these things, and it's not. It could be, like you said, popsicle sticks, it could be toothpicks, it could be toilet paper rolls, it could be a lot of
Mhm.
different that people think, oh, well, I have to have all of this. And you're like, it's really not that serious. You can
It's
use
not
some
that
string.
serious. I like that. It's just not that serious. That's what I mean by my
I,
STEM is for the streets. We taking this to the
yeah.
streets, baby. We ain't got to be up in the ivory tower in our suits.
No.
We out in the streets
Yeah.
STEMing.
Right. Because again, this is where, and that's, I think people don't see this too. you need to be looking into the real world. What are some things that you can solve the problems to that are basic things? It
Your
could be something
neighborhood,
as
your house.
yes, yes.
I know Sarah has a question, but I was gonna say real quick, my husband calls me. I'm out
Mhm.
of town. I'm in Chicago. Babe, this garage door ain't working. I don't know what this thing. Call somebody out here to fix this garage door. This garage door won't go down. Baby, it's the sensor on the garage door. We're not about to pay no $150 for that. Go out there,
Mhm.
line those two little things up, make that green light turn on. What around my house can I fix? I ain't about to pay nobody for this foolishness. And so they can come out here and do this and be like $150, please. But my husband is a teacher and a principal, but he is so not a STEM person. But that's a great example of take your babies outside and go, garage door, brake beam sensor, infrared. It won't come down because it thinks a dog is running under the door. We know ain't nothing there. How you think we're going to fix that? How do we fix that? Have them fix something around the house. If it's broken already, might as well let them try. You're going to have to pay somebody to come out anyway if they don't figure it out.
Yep.
I fixed
No,
something when I was a Spelman. I know y'all don't know what this is, but a boom box. One of my classmates in the dorm had a boom box and her tape was stuck in it. You know how the tape would unwind and get all up in
yes.
it? I got the tape out. I popped it out. It started back working. She running up and down how y'all Carlotta gonna be an engineer. She don't fix my boom box. All I did was pop the tape
Yeah.
out. But I mean,
I think that was them back then because there was them tape when we get caught up in there, you your song from the radio, you know what I'm saying? You're like, hold on, I've been waiting all day for this song to come on, y'all. So, yes.
okay, sorry.
I
Sarah had a question. Sorry. I hope I'm saying it right. But
did you wanna put in chat? Go ahead, open your mic, Sarah.
Okay. Yeah. Hi. Thank you for this. But I was gonna ask, when passion meets reality, what do you do? Because I overheard you talking about, as an undergrad, you were doing good, and then the bills came, as your financial aid, finished. Um, what would you suggest to someone that would rather, do the 4-year degree that has their financial aid paying for everything, rather than doing the STEM or sacrificing to, put the time in STEM, and then their grade dwindling to the extent that they can actually apply to grad school
yeah,
immediately.
yeah. When
Looking back now, what would you have done differently or
When
something?
passion meets reality, you come up with an alternate game plan. Your alternate game plan may be to get an associate's degree in engineering technology. Go to a local community college, get an associate's degree in engineering technology. I used to teach at a community college. You go work with that engineering technology degree until you can either find a company that will pay for you to go and get your 4-year degree, or you become successful in the ways that you can outside of traditional education. Right now, there's a lot of online websites where you can get computing certificates, certification, Microsoft certified, all that kind of stuff, where you don't have to go to a brick and mortar for your university in order to get some skill sets that are marketable to help you get a career. So if it's a financial challenge for you, then you get that associate's degree and you use that to get into the field, and maybe you save up to go back later, or you do some other things to try to work yourself up through the ranks in the company based upon your skill sets or the skills that you have acquired. I will also say, like I said about the roadblocks for me, by the time I was so deep, I didn't care what anybody said. I had a professor at Georgia, not a professor at Georgia Tech, an administrator at Georgia Tech who told me, with your grades, you're just not doing good. You really should just drop out and go home. Okay, I am 4 years into this journey and I'm less than a year from graduation. Bump what that man was saying, right? So at some point, you got to hold on to what is your purpose, what is your vision, and where are you trying to go? And that's the only voice I'm listening to. And if you got anything else to say, that dog is not going to hunt over here. But you're right. If it's a financial one, you may have to step back and regroup and go, I got to go work for a little while. But instead of having a job, I had a student on summers, he would go back home and work at McDonald's. And I told him, in the summertime, let's stop going home to work at McDonald's. Let's find an internship. McDonald's is great when you were in high school, or when I was in high school. I worked at Crystal's in high school, and I worked at Wendy's. But an internship is giving you some skill sets that will help you with your future career. When I graduated from Georgia Tech, my GPA was not good, but because I had 4 years of internships in engineering, that compensated for that GPA. So that's what I mean about make every decision you're making focus you towards your goal. So McDonald's, high school, great work experience. College, internship or work study jobs where you're doing research with a professor or working in the library and reading books about things that will help you in class. So making decisions that will help you towards your goal once you can get there.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have one more question in the chat from Stacy. She says, "Can you speak about your experience internationally? What is it like, and how is it different from the U.S.?"
Well, the little bit I've had has been absolutely wonderful. I get a lot of it through Black in Robotics, and I get a lot through those videos I showed for that international educational outreach. I've learned sometimes, whereas my students kind of take for granted the knowledge and experiences and all of the hands-on labs and robots and stuff I give them. When I do these things on an international level, they are so hungry for that knowledge and they are so grateful for it. So the people I have connected with through Black in Robotics and through the IEEE, um, I learn a lot from them as much as they learn from me. And it's also nice to actually teach people who really do appreciate the level of work it takes to do that, especially virtually. Teaching somebody to program a bit of robot on Zoom is not for the weak. It's not like I'm sitting there right next to me, like, yeah, just do that. I got to say it with my words and I got to look through the camera and be like, you putting that in the wrong hole, I think. So it's a lot more difficult, but the experience is a lot more satisfying. And like I said, I haven't given up yet. I'm gonna make I'm gonna make it somewhere where my robots have been. That's on my
We
bucket list at some point in my life. But it's just
we can
very
talk.
satisfying.
Yeah, yeah. Not that listen, we can talk about that. We got some things planned, and
Mm.
not this summer. I'm sorry, maybe next summer.
This summer is
So
booked. I'm actually booked all the way through, but 2026, we gonna make it happen.
we're gonna do something. We're gonna do something.
Yeah.
So, uh, anyone else have any questions, closing thoughts? Because as we get ready to wrap this up, I want to give you the opportunity to hear from. I don't know about you, but this is why I asked Dr. Berry to please be our speaker this month
Thank
because
you.
I mean, I can't say, yes, the recording will be shared. Absolutely. So absolutely, absolutely, because this conversation needs to be heard. I'm thinking of several people who need to hear this conversation. And so I don't know about you. I am excited. I like to say is thank you again, Dr. Berry. You are an
Thank you.
inspiration. You're
Thank
one
you
of the
so
reasons
much.
why that I do as a science educator, the work that I do with Teach Them Global is necessary. You've definitely given me something to think about, to think about the smaller kids and the younger kids and reaching them. So I thank you for that. So again, really quickly, can you share with with the audience how they can get in contact with you?
The easiest way to get in contact with me is to go to my website. I know it's a little difficult, but it's Noire for Black, STEM, STEM. I'm spelling it wrong already, Lord. INIST.com. That's noirestemminist.com. So if you go to that website, there's a way to email me. All of my social media links are there. The children's books are there. The robots that I build and sell or the robot kits are there. There's also links to my YouTube. So all of my learning resources you can get to from that website. I think there's even a link to my romance novel somewhere on there, but my romance novels are a different website. It's carlottaardale.com. Thank you so much for coming. And thank you again, Dr. West, for inviting me. I normally end with, to whom much is given, much is required. And everything that I have received in my life is a blessing. And so the things I am doing is because I am trying to be a blessing to others. Like I say, Maya Angelou says, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel.
Exactly how they made you feel. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So thank you again. Thank you all
Yeah.
for joining us. I hope that you are walking away inspired, motivated, wanting to do more, telling somebody about this conversation. It will be shared. And then I also hope that you join us next month. Our speaker next month will be Lillian Judy. We're kind of in this engineering mode
Yeah,
right now.
I know who that is. I'm gonna try to come.
Yeah, yeah, she's a plastic
Yeah.
engineer. And she's the founder of Dear Women in STEM. So I hope that you can join us. Again, I can't thank you enough for joining us. I hope that this has been a meaningful conversation for you. I can tell there's some great stuff going on here. And Dr. Barry, I'll follow up with you. And thank you again. I can't thank you enough. I am so grateful for you.
Thank you. Have a great
All right.
evening or day wherever you are in the world, everyone. Bye bye.
Thank